talk about the ending of month number 7, which was ISP, and I think it was AMD, which was an online class, actually. So my first thing I'd like to say is that, yeah, I've been slacking on the videos, straight up. Reason being, I just haven't wanted to talk about the class. ISP was like, it so far has been my least favorite class. I don't know why, but I was not digging it like I was told that I was going to. Everybody's different, but live show stuff, at least like on the grand scale that we were talking about in class, not my forte at all. Like small stuff like Mina does or that she's been doing, yeah, I can handle that kind of live stuff, where it's small. I'm fine with talking about that kind of stuff, but at least as far as the class goes, God, I don't know, it wasn't for me. A lot of my friends switched out of recording arts to go into the Show Pro program, but it just not for me. That's for sure. No way. I'm definitely a recording studio type person. Let's see, we are talking about the last, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, the last 5 or 6 days, which is the last 2 weeks of the course. And the lectures got easier as they went on, they got shorter and shorter, but the labs got harder and harder. And so, the lectures, they were kind of interesting. We talked about everything from amplifiers to power distribution, system electronics, the math that's involved with live sound. For example, the bulk of the math that we had to do was if your goal is to get 110 decibels at 20 meters, how many speakers do you need? So you have to figure out how many speakers you'd need to do that. And so for the lab, well, we'll get there. So that was the bulk of the math, and then we also talked about backline stuff, which is I guess the artists bringing in their own instruments or something like that. I wasn't too sure. None of the questions on the test were about that, but it was talking about the different instruments that you might see that a lot of artists like to bring in. The labs, they did get a little more tough. There was one day where we had to go into a computer lab and learn how to use this program called StarDraw to draw a diagram of a front of house system and then the monitor system. So basically it was like a little signal flow chart. We ended up doing 4 pages total, so 2 for each live system. And it was the console to the crossovers, and then the crossovers to the speakers for each one. So that lab wasn't too tough, but it was weird because I neglected to read and figure out where the classroom was. So I was sitting in the regular lecture classroom because I thought I had lab there, but it was in a complete different room. And then so we had 2 project labs, and each project lab was to redraw what we did and include the math. So the first project lab, I had to redraw the monitor, the monitor signal flow thing in the StarDraw program using a pictorial graph or something like that. And we had to match the amplifiers to the speakers, so we had to get our watts and ohms and everything correct. We had to do the math, what speakers that are wired in parallel, the ohms divide, but the power requirements are always going to add. So, that was easy, and we had to, obviously draw the console on one page and do all the wiring and labeling and whatnot. And I've actually got 2 of the pictures here. This is the monitor. So this is what I'm talking about. So we had a console on one page. We had to go out to the EQs and whatnot. So we had all the labels. And And then on the next page, it was just the continuation of that. So that's basically what we had to recreate, but instead of like where we have it say watts and ohms, we actually had to write the numbers in and get the numbers correct. And then the one for the house console wiring was the exact same as the monitor, except it was specified towards the house system. So those were pretty easy. The first one caught me off guard because I didn't expect it going into that lab. But the second one I was prepared for. It was no problem. I got 100s on both of them. There was also a lab where we put together the house system, and we basically played around with the house console and set that up. And we had to do like 6 different things. And basically what it was a prep lab. So it went like this. We had to practice for the star draw where we were using the computer program. The next lab was the drawing in the computers, the monitor system. The next lab is the one that I'm talking about now, or it was like a review/practice lab for the lab practical. And then the next one was for the house console drawing in the computer lab. And then the last lab was the practical. So no, that's a lot, but the 2 star draw labs were like separated, and then the review/practice for the lab final was in between them. It was really weird. But for the lab, like the practice review lab, basically we put all the wires together. The first half of the lab, we put all the wires together for the house system and learn how to patch in a time-based processor and insert a dynamic-based processor to the inserts. We also learned how to put the drums into a subgroup. What else was there? We also did using the how to say it. We turned the house console into a monitor console using the auxiliary sends, and then we zeroed everything out, and then we went on a break. And basically, the lab tech told us, well, for the second half of lab, that's basically for you guys. Whatever you need to review, come back here and practice. We'll get it done. So I went back. I needed to practice, and only 2 other people. There are 6 people in my group, and only 2 of them, 2 other than myself. So there were 3 of us total came back, and basically we went through that whole process one time each. So that means setting everything up and then tearing it down. And so I got to see it twice and do it once myself. And then the lab practical so that lab was on a Friday, and then the following Wednesday or the Thursday actually, almost a week later, was the practical, and that screwed me over. My lab practical did not go well. We had a half hour to do everything that I just described, and it did not go as well as I hoped. I was actually very disappointed in how I did that day. So yeah, that was less than desirable, I must say. I wish I could have been able to practice it one more time or whatever. So my lesson from this is that with the lab stuff, I recommend videotaping yourself doing it. That way you can review it. So from here on out, like with labs, when it comes to stuff that I only get to do once, I'm going to camera video it. I might not post it online, but I'm going to at least review it for myself. Because, yeah, that practical was just horrible. I did really bad. But everything else I got, like, A's on, except for that one thing. So I'm not going to fail the class or anything, but it definitely put a dent into my grade. So, yeah, and I don't know if it was because I only got to practice once, or because I wasn't that interested in it, or what, but it just didn't go well. And as far as the lectures went, like I said, they got shorter and shorter. The last lecture didn't even have to do with anything on the test. And the final itself was 100 questions. About 25 of the questions were math-based. And I feel like I did really well on the test. This past Thursday was the lab practical. Didn't do so good. And so I came home and I was like, all right, well, I need to kick ass at this test tomorrow. So the final for the class was on Friday. And I studied my ass off Thursday night going into Friday. And I kicked butt on the test, I must say. I think I did pretty well. The math was easy. The math was the easiest part. And the only reason I say that is because it actually required some thinking, which is a lot easier than being hunched over and, just filling in the bubbles, because the test was relatively easy. There were, of course, 3 or 4 questions that was like, I'm not too sure, but otherwise it wasn't bad at all. So a 100-question test at this point is no problem. So I'm anxious to see what grade I got for Introduction to Show Production Systems. As far as my online class went, it was Audiofile Management and Documentation, so AMD. That class went really well, actually. We had a final practical in that class, and basically it was I had to fill out a track sheet, I had to fill out an input sheet, and I also had to fill out one other thing. I can't remember what it was. Track sheet, input sheet, and then a patch bay recall, which I'd already done way back in recording consoles. So that was easy. Easy enough, I mean. And so I had to go to the last WIMBA session to make sure, I got everything. And the last project that I had to do was really easy. The majority of that class is seriously just paperwork. Like, the stuff that you have to do in Logic is easy, because last month was, what was it? Digital audio in theory. So, I mean, we learned Logic with month number 6, and then for AMD it was easy to do, just because I already know Logic pretty well. So the hardest part was just filling in the paperwork correctly. And apparently I was the only student that would turn stuff in early and have it done correctly. So I got props from my instructor on the WIMBA session that I went to. So that was awesome. That made me feel really good. And like I said, I feel like I did pretty good on the final or practical as well. So that class I passed, no problem. Nothing to it. I was planning on making 2 videos to finish up month number 7, but I picked up my stuff for tomorrow. Today is Sunday, January 29th. Yesterday I went to an indoor drumline show. And Friday, before my test, I picked up my books and stuff for Principles and Applications of Electricity, and the second class is Audiotronics. So I picked up my books for that. They're actually rather interesting. I got 2 books for PAE. This is like the textbook, I suppose you could say. It's Electricity for the Entertainment Electrician and Technician. I've already been kind of reading into it, and I'm finding it pretty interesting, not going to lie. And then Audiotronics has this like fill-in-the-blank like notes kind of book thing. So I'm excited. Tomorrow I have Audiotronics at 1:15. And then Tuesday I have PAE at 1:15 to 5. Not sure what my lab schedule is looking like yet, but as far as these 2 classes go, I've got class 1:15 to 5, Monday through Thursday for the next 4 weeks. And I've been looking at the PAE, like actual course manual that I downloaded from Propeller. So I'm excited for this coming month. Like, I think it's going to be way more interesting to me than an ISP was. Like I said, I'm not downing the class. It was a good class. I learned what I was supposed to learn, I guess. Because I kicked ass on the test, so I know that stuff. So I did learn what I was supposed to learn, but it just wasn't really my forte. And like I said, hyped for this stuff, this book. And actually, as you can see, Full Sail kind of like wrote the book, or the instructors wrote the book. And actually, we've got the same type of thing going on for PAE. Right here, this is the lab practicals workbook. And it's got like all the lab stuff and whatnot you can write in it. And it's got like questions and stuff. I don't know if you can see. But yeah, it's got like why. So these classes are going to be relatively math heavy, but I like that. I actually like those types of things. So I think this month I'm really going to crack down. I feel like I took it a bit too easy last month because it was such a slack schedule. But this month everything is set pretty set in stone. I'm going to be cracking down real hard on myself to follow the study schedules and whatnot for each class, and to make videos. I figured out how I'm going to start doing the videos a little differently. I'll be uploading them all at once, but I'm going to be filming them throughout the day. So as soon as the lecture's over, I'm going to make a video about that lecture to kind of refresh in my mind what was going on, and hopefully try to understand it myself. So thanks for watching and tuning in. I hope I'm helping you out with any questions. Like, I know this school is like really confusing. It can seem like it's definitely not a traditional school, obviously. It's different. It's hardcore. But at the same time, it is pretty amazing. Wasn't so happy with the ISP class. Learned what I was supposed to, but I wasn't really digging it. Next month should be, well, starting tomorrow, it's going to be awesome. So join me then, and I will see you soon, my friend.